Max, before we got underway here, before I logged on to the Zoom, you said, I want number one. I want the odds here because we're going to go back and forth. One of us is going to do odds. One of us is going to do evens. And you said if we can do trades, then you wanted the very first pick with the Tennessee Titans. So I'm very curious as to what you're going to do here to kick off this mock draft. I'm not going to go crazy with trades just because I kind of want to talk about what each of these teams are going to do in certain spots. But we can certainly take into account what we heard in Indianapolis, which was that the Tennessee Titans are open for business at number one. So what are you doing to kick us off here on this post-combine mock? You got the floor.
Yeah, I wanted to get the first pick because I wanted to trade it. And what I wanted to do here is trade with the New York Giants at number 3 overall. And Trevor, I don't know if you saw this. On DraftKings Sportsbook right now, the Titans and the Giants have the same odds to pick number 1 overall in the draft, which is kind of crazy considering the Titans actually have the first overall pick right now. So I think that's a little telling, and there's a reason why I want to do this for Titans' sake as well, going down to number 3, and hopefully my plan, hopefully you don't screw me over at number 2 overall. But for the Giants here, trading up to number 1 overall, obviously they're going to go for after a quarterback. We've heard time and time again from John Mara, the owner, that Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll, their jobs are on the line in 2025. He said priority number 1 is getting a quarterback as well. So and with all the reports saying, oh, Cleveland is probably going to grab a quarterback and maybe Tennessee grabs a quarterback, you can't be left at the altar with no bride if you're the New York Giants at number 3. So I think they're going to be desperate to get up to number 1. I think they'll be going after Cam Ward if they do that, the quarterback from Miami. So like I said, the fact that the betting odds are the same for the two teams, and one of them is actually picking first and one of them is picking third, I think it means that Vegas and at least what I heard in India as well, the Giants are really probably going to look to trade up to number 1 overall and get their guy.
This is also reflecting what I have heard, and that is that the Giants are very desperate to make some sort of move here, right? It was them and the Las Vegas Raiders that were in the conversation for Matthew Stafford. You've talked about, would Darnold come back to New York just playing for the other team and the Giants instead of the Jets? And so, I think the Titans are probably okay with moving on, right? And here's where I look at it right now. I think that Cam Ward's going to go number 1 overall one way or the other, right? Either the Titans believe that he's their guy at number 1, or they're going to trade it to a team that wants to draft Cam. And the reason why I think that is because of the Shedeur Sanders conversation that we'll get into throughout this mock draft, where from everything that I heard, I don't feel as though many teams, if any at all, actually view those two quarterback prospects as very close, like interchangeable. And so if you're not okay with just waiting for one of these guys, maybe at number 3, whoever falls to you, maybe the Raiders are comfortable with sitting at 6. If you're not comfortable with that, that's when you get the trade desperation that it feels like we heard when we were in Indianapolis. So I don't hate this one. I don't think it would take a ton. I wonder how much Cleveland would also get in this to drive up the price. Because the Raiders trading, let's say it's the same conversation, right? It's the same conversation that we had with Matthew Stafford. The Giants and the Raiders are in on moving up to number 1 to go get Cam Ward. The Raiders move much further back in the order to where if the Titans believe that Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter are these can't miss, gotta have them, if you want to use the word generational, you can. I hate using that word, but that's basically what we're talking about here. You can't get one of those guys at number 6. You can get one of them at number 2, and you can get one of them at number 3 if you're trading it away for the team that's going to take the quarterback and you're not going to. So if I'm the Giants, I'm less worried about the Raiders, and I'm more worried about Cleveland. Because it won't take a lot to move up and swap 1 and number 2, and then you get to pick whoever you want between Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter if you feel more strongly about one of those guys one way or the other. But that is the only thing that I sort of wanted to add to this, because I do agree with you. I think that the Giants are going to be full steam ahead, foot to the gas pedal, whatever it is, to get one of these quarterbacks, and I think that Cam Ward's probably the only one that they would trade up for. So I like this to start.
Yeah, exactly. And also the thing about from Tennessee's perspective, they only have 2 top 100 picks right now in the NFL draft as well. So they probably want to stockpile a little bit more. I don't know if it'll cost a second-round pick. It might. If you look at a lot of trade value charts, it might cost a second-round pick from the Giants as well. So I think for Tennessee, that also has a lot of other needs on the roster. You only have 2 top 100 picks in the draft. If you could add more, honestly, that'd be ideal for the Titans.
Yep. Okay, so Cam Ward going number 1?
Yep, Cam Ward.
All right, Cam Ward's going number 1. Puts Cleveland on the clock at number 2. I think they'd take Cam Ward if he was here too.
Yeah.
Like I already mentioned, I feel as though it's getting less and less likely that would be the case. It's really a coin flip between them because it feels as though Myles Garrett is not going to play for the Cleveland Browns. It feels like he has mentally moved on before he has physically and contractually moved on to a different team. And so it's hard to imagine him staying. And if that's the case, you really are just going full rebuild. And if that's the case, you probably would rather get the pass rusher in there to invest in the trenches. So as rare as Travis Hunter is, I think that Travis Hunter is the number 1 football player in this class. There are plenty of teams that I think would as well. The Cleveland Browns talked about him primarily as a wide receiver and also playing him at corner some. I think that actually helps his case to go in the top 3 if you view him more as a wide receiver. But I am going to stick with Abdul Carter here going number 2 overall. When you have these incredibly talented pass rushers, it's just hard to pass them up when you're in a spot where you're just trying to rebuild whatever the cornerstones of your team are going to be. So this one's truly a coin flip for me, Max, but I'm going to go with Carter here at number 2.
I can't blame you. I think Travis Hunter, for me at least, I'd be hard-pressed to take any other non-quarterback over Travis Hunter, considering just how valuable he could be as both a wide receiver and a corner in some capacity. But Abdul Carter is a special talent, man. And for Cleveland, a team that's, like you said, likely going to trade away Myles Garrett, getting the next superstar pass rusher in there probably is one of the top priorities for that team.
I just wanted to say before we got into number 3, because I want to hear what part 2 is to your trade there with the Titans now on the clock at number 3. By the way, I think that this reality that we're setting up, we're doing a predictive mock, so I think that it's a very high chance of this being the case and playing out in the top 3 the way that it currently is. Bo is saying, do you worry about Travis Hunter's contract? This is in the chat, by the way, live chat. Shout out to everybody who's in the chat right now. Do you worry about Hunter's contract down the line if the Browns absolutely stink for another 3 to 4 years? Yeah, I would worry about anybody though, like wasting their rookie contract, right? I mean, like if the Browns are just going to be bad for 3 or 4 years, you're not going to be able to maximize the rookie contract no matter who you take at number 2. So I don't think that's too much of a difference. You're hoping that you get something out of their rookie deal and you get to enter a winning window probably in year 3, year 4 of that. If you're up at number 3 here, picking for the odds, this is part 2 of your trade with the Giants and Titans. Is Travis Hunter the player that you didn't want me to spoil it with for them to get Hunter? What did you think?
He is not. His teammate is. Shedeur Sanders, I'm taking at number 3. Now, I know, Trev, we've heard a lot in Indy how people might not like Shedeur Sanders as a first-round pick. You didn't have him as a first-round pick in your mock draft. But Brian Callahan, I thought his podium last year when he got hired by the Titans was very interesting because what he said, okay, when I look for a quarterback, what do I look for? He said, I look for decision-making, I look for timing, and I look for accuracy. Basically the antithesis of Will Levis. And also I think that fits Shedeur Sanders to a T. And in previous interviews, he has said, when I watch Shedeur Sanders, I see a lot of Joe Burrow. And he coached Joe Burrow in Cincinnati as the offensive coordinator. So maybe a lot of teams in the NFL would not take Shedeur Sanders in the first round. But at least from what we heard in Indy, I think one of the teams that is interested in taking him as a franchise quarterback is the Tennessee Titans. And honestly, Trevor, if they sticked and picked at 1, they might even take Shedeur over Cam Ward. I really do think, just based off how Brian Callahan was talking, this sounds like his kind of quarterback. So if you could trade back from 1 to 3, get more picks because you only have 2 top 100 picks, like I said before, and still get your guy at number 3 overall, I think this is the ideal situation for Tennessee. At least from maybe he was, putting out smoke and putting out a smoke screen in Indy by talking a lot like he likes Shedeur Sanders that much. Maybe he's doing that. But at least from what I heard, it sounded a lot like the ideal quarterback for Brian Callahan fits Shedeur Sanders. I actually think this might be their guy, number 3.
The definition that you gave certainly fits for Shedeur Sanders. I don't think the league is as high on him here. Now, I will admit, I felt like I spent a lot of time yesterday talking about how like Shedeur is sliding and things like that. And I don't mean to totally say that like the guy can't play, but I couldn't find really anybody who spoke with him with a lot of conviction. Now, maybe it is like a giant smoke screen. Maybe these teams are in on, maybe specific teams are in on it, because we've said that before on this show. It doesn't take all 32 teams. You don't have to have a consensus for a guy to go high in the draft. It just needs to be the one team that happens to hold the pick. So maybe the Titans are, if they go with that definition that you talked about Brian Callahan mentioning, that is Shedeur Sanders. I just don't get the feeling that the league views him as a top 10 overall pick. I really don't. So that would shock me for this move to happen, but I think it sets up at least an interesting mock draft as we continue to go on here.
We're going for clicks, Trevor. We're just going for clicks. We're just going for clicks on this mock draft.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah, that's what we're doing here. We're just a click factory here at PFF. Number 4, the New England Patriots. I think it's got to be Armand Membou at this point, right? I mean, like you look at how bad their offensive line was last year, and I wondered if the Patriots. The Patriots were sort of seen as a potential Trey Smith destination. When Jonah Jackson became available, it was like, ooh, maybe the Patriots will get involved here. Joe Thuney becomes available, and then it's like, boom, all right, nope, he's a Chicago Bear. It was very quick this morning where I was like, hey, they're looking to trade him. All right, he's in Chicago. Deal's almost done. So I wondered if the Patriots would have gotten in on that. I feel like that could have been a good move, but they're sort of sticking around, waiting, keeping their salary cap to see, I guess, what happens when free agency opens up. So right now, they still need offensive line badly. And until they fix that, that is the most important part to me. Now, previously, I didn't really think there was an offensive tackle that I believe the NFL saw as a top 5 lock that we would give to the Patriots every time. So, I've given them Ted McMillan. I've given them Mason Graham. Sometimes when Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter happens to make it in mocks, I think those guys make a lot of sense. But with the way that Membou tested this past weekend at the Combine, 4'9", 140-yard dash at over 330 pounds. He had the long arms to him, not super long, but at least above 33 inches, 33 and a half inches. And then he put up 31 inches on the bench press as well with some pretty long arms. So that just showcases his strength. He looked good in the drills. I think he's going to be viewed as majority OT1. Not that every team's going to have him as OT1, but I think more than half the teams in the league are going to look at Membou and want to take a chance on him first as that top offensive lineman. And so the Patriots definitely need it. So I'm going to go with Armand Membou here.
I like it. I mean, you see the PFF grades right there, 85 plus grades as a run blocker and as a pass blocker this past year. He was absolutely phenomenal in the SEC for the Missouri Tigers. So yeah, his stock has been rising ever since he had that unbelievable season, and I could absolutely see him being the first tackle off the board. I personally wouldn't have him as the first tackle off the board, but in a predictive mock draft, Trev, I might agree with you that he might actually be the first guy.
QJ in the chat, I'm just shouting this out because I haven't seen it yet. Travis Hunter would change life in Carolina. My Panthers need Travis. I've never thought of that connection because he's never gotten to 8 in basically any mock draft that I've ever done. However, QJ is correct. Like I would love for Travis Hunter to be a Carolina Panther. They would just have to trade up to do it. And I wonder if they are a little gun shy to do so, giving up the capital they did to go get Bryce Young. And Bryce looks good now. Like it's all sort of worked out for them. But there was a time there where it did not look good, and they had given up a pick that ended up being Caleb Williams. And I wonder if they're just not going to be looking to get that aggressive again. But I do love his fit in Carolina.
Well, I mean, they've done it before, right? They traded up to get Xavier Legette last year too, didn't they? Right? So like they've done it before, so they might be able to do it. I will spoil it right now, QJ. Unfortunately, he will not be available for Carolina number 8 because I'm sprinting this card in if I'm the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think if Jacksonville on their own personal big board will have Travis Hunter as the number 1 overall player in the draft, and they should. I think Travis Hunter as a corner fits a big need there in Jacksonville, and then you get him in packages as a receiver next to Brian Thomas Jr., where he doesn't need to be the clear-cut number 1 guy. Liam Cohen, obviously, his number 1 job in Jacksonville as the new head coach is to surround Trevor Lawrence with as much talent as possible. So you do that while also fixing a need on your defense. Like I said, Travis Hunter is the top player on the big board, I think, for the Jaguars, and I would sprint this card in if I'm Jacksonville.
Yeah, I didn't talk about Travis Hunter enough with the New England Patriots. I mean, that's obviously something that you think about there. If you believe that he is that full two-way player, I absolutely think that he could have very well gone to the Patriots there at number 4. I'm honing in on offensive line, man. I feel like that's the area where the Patriots have to get better, and until they do in free agency, as good of a combine as Armand Membou had, I feel like they're going to gravitate towards that. Maybe I'm crazy, maybe it's like Travis Hunter no matter what here, but I wanted to explore a world where Membou goes at number 4 and we get the first offensive lineman off the board, because I do think that it's a possibility. But yeah, I mean, Travis Hunter is not getting out of the top 5. Thanks for watching, everybody. Make sure you like and subscribe the video. And if you don't have a PFF Plus subscription, you can get one to see all the premium stats that we talked about here on the show, plus the expert betting and fantasy advice over at subscribe.pff.com. The description is also right below, so if you are not a PFF Plus subscriber, you can become one today.